No talking in court, please.
You may be seated.
For the record, the state defense, Mr. Medina, all of our jurors are accounted for. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for returning. Have you all followed my orders as always?
Yes.
Detective, I will remind you that you are still under oath. Defense, would you like to conduct a cross-examination?
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
Now, I'm going to introduce myself to you, definitely to everybody else, but we've gotten to know each other through the course of this trial, but just for formality, my name is Sam Zanganeh, and I represent the accused in this case. I'm going to ask you some questions with regards to your investigation as well as your testimony today. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. So, what's more important? Getting to the truth or getting the answer that you want?
The truth, sir.
You agree with me that as a homicide detective, that is your job, to find the truth, correct?
That's correct.
And you'll agree with me that if something doesn't add up, it may be your duty to investigate that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if 2 and 2 equals 6, would that be something that you would potentially look into? That didn't make sense to you, correct?
Of course.
Okay. Now, in 2013, in August, when this case started, how many murder trials had you been the lead investigator on? I'm sorry, murder cases. I apologize. How many murder cases had you been the lead on?
Two or three.
Were either one of those cases domestic homicides?
No.
You would agree with me that domestic homicides, because of the relationship between the two parties, are unique homicides, correct?
I think they have unique parts of them, yes.
And the unique parts would be that these people usually have some sort of intimate relationship, correct?
That's correct.
It's not a random act between two strangers, correct?
Correct.
And what goes part and parcel with these investigations is there is usually a substantial history between one party and the other. Correct?
There's a connection between the two parties, yes.
And usually those connections are over a period of time.
Correct.
And that period of time is usually one where they see each other on a regular basis. Correct?
Domestic would be when they're together.
And
So
so
investigating those types of homicides.
So the answer is yes, correct?
Correct.
Let's start when you first got involved in this case on August 8th. And you know, I bought your report because I know you have it. I want to have mine as well. In your report and part of your investigation, you remember going to South Miami, correct? The South Miami Police Department, correct?
Yes.
And during the course of your investigation, did you come to know that my client gave a statement to Christine Massey?
Yes.
She actually wrote notes of her communication that morning between herself and my client. Is that correct?
Yes.
And she provided those notes to you as part of your case file. Is that correct?
No.
She didn't provide them to you.
Not to me directly.
Well, at some point during your investigation, did you receive the handwritten notes that Officer Massey provided to one of the people involved in this investigation?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say, well, Christine Massey, do I call her officer, do I call her Miss Massey? I know she's a communication officer. Am I mislabeling her?
No, she's a communications officer.
She's the first law enforcement entity that my client had communication with. Is that correct?
Correct.
And my client actually had a conversation with her or made a statement with regards to this event, to the incident, correct?
Yes.
And in that statement, he told her that he was attacked with a knife. Is that correct?
I would have to refer to my
No
report.
problem, please. And if you'd be kind enough to direct me to what page you're looking at, so I can look at it as well.
Not a problem. Is it okay if I refer to the case file?
Absolutely, please. When you're ready and your recollections are fresh, let me know.
Okay, I'm ready, sir.
In her handwritten notes, what does she say that my client told her with regards to the attack?
That she came at him with a knife.
We've seen this videotaped statement that my client gave you around, I would say, between 6:55 and 7:23 that same evening, correct?
Those times sound close.
Now, would it be fair to say that he had initial contact with Communication Officer Massey within an hour of the actual event? Is that about right? Give or take.
Roughly, yes.
In his statement to you, does he say she came at him with a knife?
He says that she had a knife.
Right. I understand that, but my question is specifically with reference to this statement. Did my client, in his statement to you, say she came at him with a knife?
You give me a moment to refer to the statement.
Absolutely. Take your time.
You can refer to page 10 of his formal statement.
Okay.
Okay. He says that she had a knife, showed it towards him, like she was going to commit suicide. I don't recall him saying that she was attacking him with a knife at that point.
Had you spoken to Communication Officer Massey prior to conducting your interview with my client?
I don't recall if I did or somebody else did.
Did you have knowledge of the statement that my client gave, Communication Officer Massey, when you interviewed my client?
Yes.
Did you question him with regards to why he made that statement to Officer Massey and his statement was different to you? At the time when he gave your sworn statement?
No.
In addition to Communication Officer Massey, are you aware of any statements that were observed or listened to by other officers at South Miami? Let me direct your attention to Officer Lopez. Did you speak to Officer Lopez?
Hearsay, sidebar.
Sustained.
As part of your investigation, did you get reports with reference to statements my clients made? My client made?
Hearsay.
Sustained.
Judge, may we approach sidebar? Many additional officers, well, let me ask this. Are you aware if Detective Lopez heard a statement from my client?
Give me a moment to refer to my...
No problem.
my report. Yes.
And was that statement consistent with the statement that Officer Massey gave you?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Are you aware if Officer Everett heard a statement from my client?
I met with Officer Everett when I first arrived at the South Miami Police Station for an exact review of whatever was told to him. If you give me just a moment, I can get that for you.
No problem.
Yes, he did make a statement to Officer Everett.
So in addition to Communication Officer Massey, my client also gave a statement, or was overheard giving a statement, at Detective Lopez and Officer Everett, correct?
Yes.
And you'll agree with me that this statement occurred less than an hour after the event, occurred, correct?
Correct.
You'll also agree with me that these statements, you learned of all these statements at some point during that day, correct?
Yes.
Now, during your direct examination, you spoke at length about conversations that you directly had with my client on the day of question. Do you recall those conversations?
Yes, I do.
And the prosecution, when discussing these statements with you, they turned They used two terms for the two separate statements. They used a pre-interview term, you're familiar with that, yes?
Yes.
And they use a formal statement. You recall that?
Yes.
Now, you'll agree with me. At 4:04, on August 8th, 2013, you read and went over the Miranda form with my client, is that correct?
Yes, the defendant read the form. Yes, I did go over his Miranda warnings, I think.
And what that means is at that time, he is advised of his Miranda rights, am I correct?
Yes.
Which means that anything that he says can and will be used against him in a court of law, correct?
Yes.
Did you tell him, listen, this is a pre-interview, don't even worry about it, it really doesn't mean anything? You didn't say that, did you?
No.
Did you even mention to him that there was a pre-interview going on?
No.
You read him his Miranda rights, sat down in front of him with Detective Hatzett in an interrogation room at the homicide unit in Miami-Dade County, correct?
Yes.
And while you guys were talking to him, am I safe to assume that you and Detective Hatzett were taking detailed notes with regards to his initial statement to you?
The way that I conduct my interview that day, okay, was we allow him to just start talking to us. So he starts talking, and then at some point during that time, I go back and go over his story again. At which time I start taking notes, which then I utilize in my supplemental report as well as his formal statement.
So there's an initial part of his story when he talks to you that you don't take notes?
Yes.
Okay. And when you're conducting this interview, let me just preface this by saying, at no point did he not want to give a statement, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So at 4:04, when you guys gave him the Miranda form, there was no time before that where you had to sit down and go, listen, Derek, it's probably in your best interest to come clean and let us know what happened, so on and so forth. The kind of stuff that you see on TV shows, correct? That never happened, right? Okay. So at 4:04, when you give him the Miranda form, he goes over it, acknowledges, signs it. You then start interviewing him and questioning him, correct?
Yes.
During this interview process, is it videotaped?
No.
You'll agree with me that my client's initial statements to you are of utmost importance, correct?
Yes.
And according to your report, after you secure the Miranda form at 4:04, you and Detective Hatzett step out and come back around 4:30, right?
I can refer to my report for the exact
No
times.
problem. It's page 11.
Yes.
And at 4:30, you conduct an interview and discuss what happened during this incident with my client from 4:30 to 5:12, correct?
Roughly, yes.
I say those numbers because that's what's reflected in your report. You said from 4:30 to 5:12, you were interviewing my client, correct?
Correct.
You'll agree with me, we don't have the advantages of having it videotaped, so we're going to have to rely on the notes that you took and what you placed in your report to substantiate what happened during that meeting, correct?
Correct.
Those notes that you took, do you still have them?
No.
When did you discard them?
I discard them after I prepare a supplemental report.
And that's the supplemental report that you're looking at, correct?
That's correct.
The same one I'm looking at right now, correct?
I don't know what you're looking at. I'm sure it's the same.
It's the same one.
Okay.
Okay. So 4:30 to 5:12. That's, let's see, how many minutes is that? 4:30, that's 42 minutes. So in a 42-minute conversation, in your report, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about 12 lines of notes. Right? That's what you wrote in your report? 12 lines of notes? Let me ask you this. Did you capture everything that you deemed to be significant in those 12 lines of notes?
As I stated earlier, the notes that we take, the way that I conduct my investigation, is during the interview process, I take notes. In my supplemental report, in conjunction with the formal statement, those items are put together so that they can be memorialized for here in court.
So the formal statement is from 6:55 to 4:22. That's 27 minutes, yeah? Correct?
I can look at the exact
Please,
times.
knock yourself out.
(6:55 to 7:23).
Okay. How many minutes is that?
28 minutes.
28 minutes. And you agree with me that during the formal interview, there's multiple times that the court reporter stops Derek, slows him down, so she can get the right, to write it down correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you'll also agree with me that there's times where, because Derek's talking so fast, you use your right hand to slow him down, correct?
Correct.
So 28 minutes in that formal statement, 42 minutes in the first part of the pre-interview. And let me get this straight. You're saying that you wrote everything down, I guess, what's relevant in the report. Is what you wrote down on page 11 of your report what you deem to be relevant during that 42 minutes?
I stated earlier, my supplemental report in conjunction with a formal statement is what is memorialized in the person's, in this case, the defendant's statement to us.
Well, let me ask you this. You'll agree with me that during the course of this investigation, the following day, the following week, you learned new things about this case, correct?
Correct.
And whatever could have been relevant that didn't sound relevant on the night of issue, we'll never know about because those notes are in the trash, yeah?
No.
So from 4:30 to 5:12, those 12 lines summarize everything my client said, yes? That's what you're telling the jury.
That's not what I'm telling the jury.
So what he talks about in these 12 lines here are things that he discusses in the interview, correct?
As I stated earlier, whatever is materialized or memorialized here in this report,
Well, let's
in
go.
conjunction to his formal statement, I don't rewrite certain things that are in the formal. I sometimes do as a summary in my supplemental
No
report.
problem. Let's
And
go
I-
over paragraph by paragraph what you write in your report to see if it's duplicative of what's in the formal statement. Okay, let's do that. In the first paragraph, you discuss what their plans were for the night before, correct?
That's correct.
You also discuss the fact that my client was supposed to wake up the decedent at 1:30 to watch a movie, correct?
That's correct.
And that he chose not to wake up the victim at 1:30 because he wanted to let her sleep, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Second paragraph. He woke up, my client, that Derek woke up at 9:30, correct?
Correct.
That the decedent walked into the room and they began arguing, correct?
That's the first argument, yes.
Okay. That she then threw towels and mascara at him. I remember that specific line because there was a very funny statement by the prosecutor whether or not anyone has ever died by the mascara and my towels. You recall that?
Yes.
That my client then got up from the bed, right?
Correct.
Entered the closet, got a firearm, correct?
Correct.
Pointed at the victim and told her not to throw anything at him, correct?
Correct.
And then she said, I'm going to leave you for good, correct? Is that correct? It's the last two lines.
Yes.
Then at 5:12, you indicated you offered him a break for food and drink, and he declined, correct?
That's correct.
Then he showed you he showed you areas where he said he was injured, correct?
Correct.
you first spoke to him, he indicated, you asked certain baseline questions, like if he had an education, correct?
Yes.
He indicated that he did, correct?
Yes, he did.
That education included Florida National College, where Derek told you he got a bachelor's degree.
Yes.
Did you investigate that?
No.
He told you that he wasn't taking any prescription medication, correct?
That's correct.
Did you investigate that?
No.
He told you that he had no history of mental illness, correct?
Correct.
Did you investigate that?
Yes, I did.
How?
I spoke with members of his family, including his mother.
Did you make any determination to see if he had a therapist that his family didn't know about?
No.